Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Oh, so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular upon spur, singing up, yeah, through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Donald Trump's populist campaign, that is the subject of this evening. As for Trump himself, as I told you back in August, he's not really a Republican guy. The calculation Donald Trump made from the beginning of his campaign is that Americans are so fed up with career politicians and the direction of the country, they don't care anymore about party politics. Thus, Trump is run as a populist. Listen to what he said last night.
We won the evangelicals. We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
Trump is slapping the elites, who many voters despise. Trump realizes that he is mobilizing Americans who never before took part in the political process. In the end, Donald Trump doesn't care about politics. He doesn't care about parties. He does not care about elites. He does not care about what he says in attacking an opponent. He only cares about one thing: winning. And that's a memo.
I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, to the stage.
Like all nations represented at this great forum, America hopes for a future in which everyone can prosper and every child can grow up free from violence, poverty, and fear. As President of the United States, I will always put America first, just like the leaders of other countries should put their country first also. But America first does not mean America alone. When the United States grows, so does the world. Our common security requires everyone to contribute their fair share. My administration is proud to have led historic efforts at the United Nations Security Council and all around the world to unite all civilized nations in our campaign of maximum pressure to denuke the Korean Peninsula. We continue to call on partners to confront Iran's support for terrorists and block Iran's path to a nuclear weapon. We're also working with allies and partners to destroy jihadist terrorist organizations such as ISIS, and very successfully so. Republicans want to basically hurt, if you really want the facts, they want to hurt Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They're, talking about cutting, they're talking about moving the dates up, so a person, instead of being X, we're going to move it up 5 years, and what's wrong with 69, they go, and what's wrong with 75? I want to take the money back from China. I want to save Social Security. People have been paying in for a big portion of their lives into Social Security. I want to save Social Security. I don't want to cut Social Security.
I am going to protect and save your Social Security and your Medicare. You made a deal a long time ago.
As you know, our country doesn't have much raw earth. We have a lot of oil and gas, but we don't have a lot of the raw earth. And what we do have is protected by the environmentalists, but that can be unprotected. But still, it's not very much. They have among the best in the world in terms of raw earth. So we're going to be using that, using it for all of the things we do, including AI, and including weapons and the military, and it's really going to very much satisfy our needs. So it's something that just worked out really well. We have a lot of oil, and we have a lot of gas, we have a lot, but we don't have raw earth. So this has just about every component of the raw earth that we need for computers, for all of the things we do. This puts us in great shape.
Tweeted at me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And let me read what the last one said. It said, greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made. Sir, I wish he was in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company myself. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on. Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution every poll?
No, sit down. Sit down. Okay. You're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
The two men now are ready to bury the hatchet, saying President Trump has brought them together.
President Trump and Sean O'Brien sat down and talked. One of the first phone calls he made was to me and said, hey, Mark Wayne, I think you guys will get along. You guys need to talk because I think we got a place for the unions to come in, and it starts with Sean. Why don't you guys just sit down and break bread together? Sean and I broke bread together the first time. We have truly built a friendship ever since then. And it's about setting our differences aside and looking at what we have in common.
I'm glad you guys have buried the hatchet. More importantly, I'm glad you're working together. I want the Republican Party to forever be the party of working men and women. I hope one of the models that comes out of this is that companies let workers enjoy in the profits, so they're all pulling in the same direction and they all have skin in the game.
Mr. President, we know that the most consequential relationship in the world is between the U.S. and China. U.S. 28% of the global economy, China close to 20%. That's almost half of the global GDP. And we know that you called President Xi Jinping last Friday. We heard that you had a good discussion. How do you see the relationship between the U.S. and China in the next 4 years under your leadership?
I like President Xi very much. I've always liked him. We always had a very good relationship. It was very strained with COVID coming out of Wuhan. Obviously, that strained it. I'm sure it strained it with a lot of people, but that strained our relationship. But we always had a great relationship, I would say, and we look forward to doing very well with China and getting along with China. Hopefully, China can help us stop the war with, in particular, Russia, Ukraine. And they have a great deal of power over that situation. And we'll work with them. And I mentioned that during our phone conversation with President Xi. And hopefully we could work together and get that stopped. We'd like to see denuclearization.
The ones that get very sick and go to the hospital are the ones that don't take the vaccine. But it's still their choice. And if you take the vaccine, you're protected. Look, the results of the vaccine are very good. And if you do get it, it's a very minor form. People aren't dying when they take the vaccine.
Both the president and I are vaxxed. And did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too. Okay, so...
Don't. That's all. There's a very tiny group over there.
He called me, and I said, this is good for you. This is good that people see another side of you, not a political side. You told the truth. You believe in the vax. Your administration did it, and you should take credit for it because it did save, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of lives.
I just wish he had been doing this all along. And politically speaking, I've always thought it was the stronger play. That base is not going to abandon him, and why wouldn't he take credit for what is arguably the greatest accomplishment that occurred on his watch? I mean, maybe it's a realization now of what I just said, that he's in a very good position to take that nomination if he wants it, so why not go ahead and lay claim to it?
Have you met with Donald Trump since the election?
Yeah, I had a chance to go have a long and actually quite intriguing dinner with him.
What did you discuss? What was intriguing?
Well, we touched on a lot of things. It was over 3 hours. To my surprise, it was, just he and I, his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, and the person who helps manage things for me, Larry Cohen. So the four of us sat there, and it was quite wide-ranging. Global health's the area that I work in, and such amazing things have happened and can happen there. I spoke a lot about HIV and that the foundation's literally working on a cure for that. We're at an early stage, and so he, in the COVID days, accelerated the vaccine innovation. So I was asking him if maybe the same kind of thing could be done here, and we both got, I think, pretty excited about that. We talked about polio, where we're very close to getting that done, but if you stop, it'll spread back. And so I explained why it's been tough in Pakistan, Afghanistan. We've had cases show up in Gaza. We have cases in Africa. And he was fascinated to hear what he could do to maximize the chance that during the next 4 years, that incredible milestone will be achieved. I felt like he was, energized and, looking forward to helping to drive innovation. I was frankly impressed with how well he showed a lot of interest in the issues I brought up.
As a matter of national security, I've signed this omnibus budget bill. There are a lot of things that I'm unhappy about in this bill. There are a lot of things that we shouldn't have had in this bill, but we were, in a sense, forced. If we want to build our military, we were forced to have. There are some things that we should have in the bill. But I say to Congress, I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again. Nobody read it. It's only hours old. Some people don't even know what it is. $1.3 trillion. It's the second largest ever. President Obama signed one that was actually larger, which I'm sure he wasn't too happy with either. But in this case, it became so big because we need to take care of our military. And because the Democrats, who don't believe in that, added things that they wanted in order to get their votes. We have to get rid of the filibuster rule. We have to get rid of the filibuster rule and go to 51 votes in the Senate if we're going to have really sustained, continued success. Under the executive order I signed last month, this new beautiful outdoor statue park, it's going to be a statue park. It's going to be unbelievable. We'll honor hundreds of our greatest Americans to ever live, including countless Black Americans, icons. The garden will feature Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Billie Holiday, Aretha Franklin,
and Coretta Scott King, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Jackie Robinson, what a great athlete that was, Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, he's not a bad athlete. What do you think, Muhammad? Not too bad.
So it just seems a little hypocritical that you would be doing everything in your power to sort of outlaw the teachings of what, say, a Muhammad Ali stood for. Like, are you going to tell people that he stood against war, that he stood against these very progressive civil rights issues? That doesn't seem to be the part of it. And what I noticed there from that clip is that he had to read letter by letter about what these people, what these great Americans have done in terms of progress for our country, because it's not something he's familiar with and not something that it's natural for him. So I consider this to be an insult, a slap in the face. And frankly, all the people that attended this, look, I guess God bless you if you've never been to the White House and maybe you looked at it as some kind of great experience. But everything this president has stood for and done in the last decade or so has been a complete rejection of what Black history is. What are Americans supposed to think?
I mean, look, President Trump is not a traditional politician. I mean, he never has been, he never will be. So today when we saw the celebration in the White House, I thought that was a beautiful ceremony. I thought it was a packed house there. I mean, Tiger Woods, I can go on and on of all the people that were there. He made it very clear today, Abby. He said, Black Americans are legends. I'm going to put some statues up. Kobe Bryant.
But he's governing in exactly the opposite way.
I think he's trying to gaslight us.
In
I
what
mean, come
way,
on,
Solomon?
man. You have got to be kidding.
So if he didn't have it today, you would be back.
He's trying to gaslight us. First, he said he doesn't want anybody in government to celebrate Black History Month, and then he says, "Okay, I'm going to put on an event about Black History Month, and I'm going to be the speaker." There aren't any Black people, really saying anything about what's happening with him. He tried to use DEI as literally a racial slur against us, as if Black people are benefiting from anything in this country and getting anything we're not qualified for and don't have to work twice as hard for. Black people have to live in the real world. When the cops come, we're scared because we might not come out of it alive.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Culture. I am Quisha King, one of your hosts for this evening. And tonight we are talking about Trump. What is Trump's brand of nationalism? I suspect that we'll get into some other topics as well, as, there's a lot of things going on in our country right now that Trump is leading on. There's things that we can all agree on, and from the chat there are things that that we're going to disagree on as well, which is a good thing. We don't want to be, we want to have different opinions. We want to hear people, different ideas. And so I would just suggest, let's just keep it respectful in the chat. Let's not get too, passionate and forget that, we're on the same team. I think most of us. But so my first thought, when I'm thinking about this question, I think Trump is very pragmatic. I don't think that Trump is necessarily very I think he's very dispassionate about a lot of these issues. I think he looks at them and he's like, okay, what's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? What's going to best help and what's not going to best help? What do people like? They like this? Okay, I might think about it. They don't like it. Okay, maybe that's something not to think. I think he's, kind of what do the people want? I think that's kind of his stance. I do think that because of the attempted assassination attempt on his life, I think that did change him a bit. And I do think that, that probably brought him a little bit closer to God and having him to think about, some afterlife stuff, which anyone probably would do when you survive someone trying to take your life. So those are my preliminary thoughts. We will get into it. I'm going to bring up our fearless leader who is back with us. Let's welcome him. Mr. Chado Jackson.
How are you today, Quisha?
I'm good. How are you? Where you been? What's going on?
Yeah, between traveling for work and making this film, I haven't been as available as I'd like to, but I'm back tonight and I'm excited to get into the conversation. So
good.
Thank you to Gothics, also to Ebony, also known as Jambalaya Talks, as well as Jericho Green. Thank you all for stepping in. I did watch the shows. I was able to catch the episodes, and they all did a very phenomenal job. And in fact, I think I saw a couple comments from folks saying that they would rather have those folks on the show than me. So you're still stuck with me. But yeah, I do appreciate those folks stepping in. I think they did a phenomenal job.
They definitely did. Well, we are so grateful to have you back. Grateful to, anticipating to hear your thoughts on this because you always bring so much value. Let me bring up my good friend, Mr. Blanchard Robertson. How are you, Blanche?
What's going on? What's going on?
Good. Y'all, Blanche. I'm spilling the tea. Blanche was eating behind the scenes. You good? You good, Blanche? You good? You good? All right. All right.
Yeah.
So Chuck is another one that's eating right now. He is having dinner with his family, so he'll be joining us momentarily. But so Chad, what do you think Trump's brand of nationalism is?
Well, I have to say I do agree with your opening remarks as it relates to Trump's dispassion when it comes to these issues. We talk a lot about Marxism, socialism on this show, juxtaposed to what I believe to be the one true faith, Christ. I know that Christ, there's no other name by which man can be saved than by that of Christ. Trump isn't going to do it. Obama's not going to do it. No politician or party is going to do it. It's only the name of Christ. And so whenever I approach these topics, I always do so from a biblically based lens. And I think because of that, you're bound to get on the bad side of different people of different political factions. I mean, those on the so-called left already disagree with a lot of the things that I have to say, but from time to time, you also get on the bad side of the so-called Republicans and conservatives as well. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of people, a lot of politicos, a lot of people who are interested in politics who genuinely believe or subconsciously believe that politics is a way to fix all this stuff. Everything that's wrong with the country, everything that's wrong with our communities, everything that's wrong with us as individuals can be fixed by the next politician, the next policy that comes down the pipeline. And so when it comes to my engagement on social media, my engagement on the show, the kind of films that I'm interested in making, I want to talk about these subjects, but I want to do so from a biblical perspective. And as such, I can acknowledge that when it comes to somebody like a Trump, by virtue of the things that he say, as well as a lot of the things that he do, it's clear to me that he's not somebody who leads from a biblical perspective. This is true not only of Trump, but this is true for the majority, the overwhelming majority of our politicians, of our presidents over the course of the history of this country. And so I don't expect for Trump to be any different than the other presidents. But at the same time, I want for our audience to not be led astray, not to be misled, not to be naive to this idea that Trump is fighting the good fight against socialism and Marxism, when it's very clear that there's a lot of things that he's doing that is actually advancing the cause of socialism in this country and this cause for collectivism globally. A lot of the things that he's doing is toward that end, whether he's doing so consciously or unconsciously. And so there's a lot of things that Trump will say that he has said in the past. For example, one of his most famous State of the Union addresses, he said, America will never be a socialist country. And a lot of people, including myself, applauded that. But the reality is, understand the difference between something someone is saying and something that someone is actually doing. So again, what am I trying to say? I know I said a lot of things and I'm kind of all over the place with my time here, but what I'm trying to say is don't be misled. Don't put your hope in Trump or anyone else for that matter. You can appreciate some of the things that Trump is doing, and give honor to whom honor is due and where it is due. But if you believe that Trump is our frontline crusader against the cause of socialism and Marxism, I hate to break it to you, but he's not. I mean, he's taken several, certain steps forward, but he's also taking certain steps backwards as well. The reality of it is it's important for the sake of yourself and for your family to not be led astray by Marxism, whether it's coming from the left or the right. But let me just say this real quickly before Blanche goes, because a lot of you might be thinking to yourself, well, Chad, you're saying all this, but you yourself talk a lot about Marxism and speak against it. So what are you trying to say? What then is my call to action if the politician who I help get into office is not, to your point, someone who's going to go hard against communism? What then can we do? Well, the reason I come so hard against Marxism is because Marxism and other such ideologies, it's not just Marxism, but all of these the Bible calls them hollow and deceptive philosophies, are meant to lead you astray. They're meant to kind of call you into the ranks of the army that is building the proverbial Tower of Babel. That's what these ideologies and these hollow and deceptive philosophies aim to do. They will go on with or without your participation. My advocacy for you is that you don't either consciously or subconsciously participate in the building of this Tower of Babel. That's my call to action to you. Whether it's Trump, whether it's Hillary, whether it's Kamala, or whomever the case may be, the world is going to do what the world does. The politicians are going to do what the politicians do. Your hope should be in Christ, and what you should do with your ligaments, with your passions, with your wherewithal, is to lead your family in the way of Christ and the way of the cross. That's what you have the power to do. But my point in coming so hard against Marxism isn't that you then put your trust in a politician who is claiming that they will fight against Marxism, but rather that you know how to discern these hollow and deceptive philosophies when you hear them, lest you yourself fall for the banana in the tailpipe. So I'm hoping all that makes sense. And I know I said a mouthful, but again, I'm anxious to get into the show tonight.
And I will say, I mean, you can be misled by the America First movement too. All of these things can lead you in the wrong direction if you don't have your boundaries up. But Blanche, what do you think Trump's brand of nationalism is?
I think that I think that Trump is a salesperson. I like Trump, but I guess in other words, can he stop this global agenda? No. And I think the problem is that, like Chad was talking about, I guess this whole thing of putting America first, and how do we put America first in a world that's made up of many nations? What does that look like? What does it look like for America to be the first nation, leader of the free world? What does it look like? I think the problem is that have we ever really seen it? And I think that they talk about populism, and I'm gonna just say this. I think that Donald Trump is necessary, but not for the reasons that people believe. I think that it's not his job to save us from the New World Order. And it's not his job to keep us from being socialists. It's not his job to save us from the Great Reset. It's not his job doing any of that stuff. That's our job. And at the end of the day, that responsibility lies on the people. And the problem is that if Trump is hired by the people and he's not doing what you want him to do, then guess what? You need to hold him accountable. And I think the people, the issue I see is that people don't value what they gave their vote up for. And that's what any politician that you choose to select or elect or whatever, it's your job as a citizen, my job, that if we don't like where the country is going, then what are we going to do about it, period. And I just think that, like Chad said, no politician is going to be able to save us, or it's not going to happen. It's up to the people. So if America's supposed to be by the people and for the people, then guess what? That's what it means. So I'm not putting all this pressure on Donald Trump. I'm not putting this pressure on Joe Biden. I'm putting pressure on anybody. This is on the people. And I think, to me, what we should have learned this last election was it is on us. Nothing is going to stop the Great Reset. Nothing is going to stop Bernie Bordeaux, the new leader of the World Economic Forum. Again, nobody's going to stop these. It's not going to stop. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? Trump's going to be gone in 4 years anyway. And I think the problem is that we are looking to these politicians without having a plan. If you're truly upset about the way things are going, then what are we going to do about it? People are talking a lot, but what are they going to do? I'm just saying, what are you going to do? Are you going to storm the Capitol? Are you going to stand outside the White House? Are you going to, what are you going to do? So I just think that we can't put this on one person. Donald Trump got in office, and most people said they want Donald Trump back in office. You got it. You wanted Biden gone. You want, just like they said they wanted Trump gone and wanted Biden in office. You got what you wanted. Now, what are you going to do about it? I just think that you can't put that pressure on any man. That's on us to do. So I don't know.
Yeah. Chad, in what ways do you think that Trump is helping these dirty, filthy commies?
Well, I hand selected the clips that you saw in the montage, and the thing about Marxism that I find very interesting, if you go on Wikipedia right now and you type in communist revolutions, they have on Wikipedia a chronological list of events that transpired over the course of history that they call communist revolutions. And of course, there's the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. There's things that happened in Vietnam, so on and so forth. So you see all of these different events that transpired over the course of history. Missing from this list is the civil rights movement here in the United States, right? And the reason I find that very peculiar is because the whole idea is that a revolution is people taking up arms, setting fires, coming together, building their own militia or their own army, overthrowing an oppressor of some sort. But what's interesting about this list, once again, you have a list of what they call successful revolutions, and you have a list of what they call unsuccessful revolutions, like the Commune there in Paris in 1871. They say that this was a failed attempt to revolutionize Paris or France, rather. But again, you see missing from this list of successful revolutions the civil rights movement, right? So where I'm going with this is you have this kind of soft revolution that's taken place, that has been taking place for a long period of time, and that continues to rage on to this very day. But you, the general public, are not meant to believe that a revolution is in fact at play because of the gradualism under which it's taking place. When you look at all of the detrimental policies, and Chuck talks a lot about this in the small independent film over the administrative state that we did a few months ago. When you look at a lot of the abysmal and detrimental policies that came to us by way of the FDR administration, where he's pushing things like Social Security and other things. Here you have Trump now saying, I'm not going to take away Social Security. I'm going to save your Social Security. And he's saying that so many people depend on the Social Security, and it's not fair to them to take this away from them. And it's actually those Republicans who I'm saving you from who want to scrap your Social Security. there's certain things like that that if I were to come out and say, look, see, here's an example of Trump either advancing the cause of Marxism or securing Marxist strides that have taken place over the course of the last 100 years. If I were to come out and say that, there's a lot of people who, me saying that will go over their head because they don't understand the way in which this kind of Marxist ideology unfolds and the way that it spreads and the way that it kind of becomes caked or baked into the American cake, as it were, and comes a part of Americana that you cannot question its American bona fides, even though it's born out of a Marxist school of thought. So your question is difficult to answer in a quick, snappy way. Do I believe that Trump himself is a Marxist? Do I believe that he has any kind of political or philosophical ideology whatsoever? No, I don't. Again, I think that you hit the nail on the head in your opening statement, Quisha, where you said that, Trump is about kind of putting his finger in the air, seeing which way the wind is blowing, and doing and kind of following his own intuition in terms of what he feels is right. There's a word for that, populist. Bill O'Reilly, as you saw in the opening montage, called Trump a populist. I don't think that he ever called himself a populist. He may have. I didn't see it. He may have said it. I haven't seen any evidence of him saying it, but I think it's difficult to answer your question. At least I don't think that you can make a bold statement in saying that Trump is consciously advancing the cause of Marxism. But technically speaking, there are things that he has done and continues to do that I believe kind of expands Marxism, if that makes sense. Hey, Chuck, how are you?
What's up, y'all?
Hey, Chuck. I do. So I would also say that I don't think that Trump is just a pragmatist. I think he has a lot of experience that he's relying on as well. I think, how he's dealt with people in the past and how things, building companies. And I think that plays obviously a lot into how he governs. So I just want to add that in there. I don't think that he is just let me see what the people want and that's what I'm going to do. Because we've seen him see what people want and be like, no, I don't think that that's the best way to go either, and kind of do his own thing, which why a lot of people don't like him, because he will hear, both sides and, just kind of end up doing his own thing. But
at the same time, Quisha, I think it's safe to say that Trump does have that kind of it factor, where he kind of walks into a room and lights up the room or sucks the air out of the room, depending on who it is you're talking to.
Yeah.
And as such, like the people who have that it factor knows what people will find popular versus that which that which people won't find popular. And to the extent that they stand alone on a subject, even though the popular opinion is going in a different direction, they trust that their charisma, their personality, or the fact that they're famous amongst their base will cause people to kind of come around to their way of seeing things, right? Brandon Tatum is someone who I believe has that it factor. There's certain things that he says, certain takes that he gives that are against what the majority of his followers, his subscribers believe. For example, he just did a show not too long ago about Derek Chauvin and how, Ben Shapiro came out and said that he believes that Trump should pardon Derek Chauvin. A lot of Brandon Tatum's supporters believe or agree with Ben Shapiro. And here Brandon Tatum came out and said, no, I disagree with that. Derek Chauvin engaged in bad policing. So I disagree with that. And he got a lot of flack in his comment section, but he still stood on what he said, because, Brandon Tatum is one of these people, once again, who just kind of has that natural charisma, that natural popularity. The people in school, he kind of has that and trust that, like, okay, even if people disagree with my take, I'm still Brandon Tatum. I think Trump is kind of the same way, where yeah, I'm the one that pushed vaccines. I'm the one who saved millions of lives. And even though his base disagreed with the whole idea of rolling out these vaccines in the fashion that they did, I'm still Trump. My base is not going to leave me. And the final point I'll make on this is, I forget the guy's name on CNN, the reporter, the bald guy, and he was in a montage. He even said, like, look, I agree. I disagree with Trump on a lot of things, but I agree with him standing firm in this because his base is not going to leave him. So it's just one of those things where it's like, for the most part, those people who have that it factor, they have this kind of desire to stay in the good graces of the people. But when it comes to a thing that they do, because I'm not saying that Trump is completely devoid of principles or what he, I'm not saying that there's no hill that Trump won't die on. That's not what I'm saying at all. There are certain hills that he will die on. He's not, completely devoid of feeling passionate about certain things.
Right.
However, for the most part, he does seem to operate from this understanding of, I want to remain into the good graces of my base, and so as a result, wherever they lead, I will follow, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Is that what we're supposed to do as how our country's set up? Like, he works for us, and if that's what they're saying, isn't that kind of what isn't that how America's supposed to work? That's for anybody.
that opens up a broader conversation, though, Quisha, and which concludes with the fact, it's a cliche, but it's a fact, that we get the country we deserve, right? Because to ask such a question requires us to look in the mirror as people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the real conversation that needs to be had. But I spoke a lot, so I'll give you all back the floor.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of like what Blanche was saying. Chuck, what do you think? Welcome. How was the meal? You good? Delicious.
Yeah. Wife, it was spaghetti and meatballs tonight, and
nice.
little garlic bread, But normally, if I can't get dinner in before the show starts, I just suck it up and just go through this with you guys, and then I'll eat after the fact at like 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
But it was bad for me today, the way my day worked out. I'm a creature of habit, like most adults, at least most men. I think that's how we are. But and like I say, adult women too. And so I have my Sunday routine. I try to get up, go to church, afterwards go to the gym and do. But my whole routine kind of got spent out of whack, and I didn't eat today. So I was like, I can't wait till after the show tonight. I'm gonna be on camera just belly aching, hurting. I said, I gotta eat before I start. So that's how that all worked out. And then I was having some computer problems, so that delayed me for about another 15 minutes. So
okay.
I'm here now. So I apologize for being late. Welcome back, Chad. And look like Blanche just stepped off the golf course.
Okay.
But I'm here.
You got that Tiger Woods energy right now.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that. But I'm here. I wasn't watching the show, but just picking up on what Chad was saying, just coming in the middle of the conversation. I concur with what he said at the end. I have been, this is not to self-aggrandize in any way, but I myself have been somewhat sounding the alarm on this populism concept. It's a very dangerous concept, and it like you said though, Quisha, it all boils down to, what do we want? Yes, Trump, he can read the tea leaves. I believe he's I don't want to say intuitive to make it sound like he's somehow supernatural or extraordinary in this way. But he is a politician, and that's the capacity in which he's functioning right now as head of the executive branch. And I think he knows what's popular, right? Hence populism. He knows what people want. He knows what they don't want, and I think he knows what I guess battles to fight. I mean, for the sake of his own political career, for the sake of his own longevity. And that's just like the double-edged sword of politics, right? I mean, that's just the way. Unfortunately, that's sort of just how it's sort of how it goes, right? Eliminating Social Security and Medicaid. I mean, some of these major, I mean, those are just like the main three you hear people bring up all the time. But there are all sorts of subsidies, all sorts of federal welfare entitlements that have ballooned the budget beyond anything our framers certainly could have imagined, even with inflation being considered. But I think Trump knows that I'm assuming, I don't know, but if he does that, then he's wondering, okay, what about his political fortunes moving forward? Because if he begins to dip his poll numbers, and these are kinds of things that politicians pay intense and pay close attention to. Their poll, how are they polling? Where are they looking, popularity wise? Because they're always looking to the next election, which is a part of the problem. We can talk about term limits. There are a lot of things that we could talk about, but every politician is sort of, they have their eye out on where their poll numbers are because they're looking toward the next election, right? Hence, we have this whole thing that we call career politicians, right? We hate these career politicians. And so I think President Trump knows that if my polls dip, then I may be sacrificing some other parts of my agenda that I know the bulk of Americans can or are on board with when it comes to, say, for example, protecting women's sports or protecting the border and, finding ways to, lower energy costs or lower food costs and these kinds of things. People have faith that, and I don't know if we've gotten to this part in the conversation yet, because there is a lot of debate going on online when it comes to this tariff issue. We may get to that later, but people have faith in general that President Trump can, in fact, help the economy by lowering prices and these sorts of things. And President Trump is probably saying, okay, look, I'll do what every politician before me has done, which is pretty much kick the can down the road when it comes to some major issues, so long as I can get my other agenda items across. And hopefully when the people, that's us, when we wake up and realize what we've done to ourselves, then, as the old saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear, right? It's like, like Chad O said, it calls for a closer examination of our principles, our values, and we as citizens, right? I mean, what do we believe? And I don't know if a majority of Americans today are clamoring for ending Social Security, as one example. I don't think Americans want that, and that's reflective on us more so perhaps than it is on him. But I guess that's open for debate.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these issues are like that with the welfare stuff, things that where you're going to be actually taking money and things like that from people. Like, it's going to be tough to get people there, which is one of the reasons why you don't start something like that in the first place. At the same time, I guess I'm kind of like an incrementalist. I think we should be moving to do things like little by little. For instance, I don't believe that public schooling is good for any child. I even think that school choice, having the money following the child, like, do I think that is the best way for our education system to run? No, I don't. I think it should be I think homeschool is the best way. I think that's the only way you can pretty much guarantee your child's mind is safe, from these abusers. But I'll take school choice now, because I don't think that 50 million families are going to be like, yes, let's all pull our kids out of school, so I don't know. Like, go ahead.
Question for you, Quisha. Do you believe that all, I guess, schooling should be privatized? So you just want to get rid of public education altogether? Or do you just want to get rid of schools altogether. I mean, you say that you believe homeschooling is the best option. Fair enough. But, you know, there are going to be some parents who won't homeschool their children. They just will make the choice for whatever reason. There are a multitude of reasons that we can think of who just won't do that. So so yeah, I guess that's my question. I mean, school as an institution, where do you stand on that? Should it be completely privatized? Should we have no schools? Like what should we do? Should we take it back to the Middle Ages where, you know, only clergymen were literate? I mean, I'm being extreme, but you get what I'm saying. Like, what's your take on this school as an institution, I guess?
I think that the best system would be for parents to educate their children. And then they can go on to college and stuff like that. Like if they decided to do that, I think it would be best taken back to a pre-compulsory public schooling system. So if that means, you know, getting rid of the public, but I understand that is such a massive restructure, just like how public schooling was a massive restructuring of society. To take it out would be a massive restructuring of society. And I know that people they're not there, you know, so I'm like, okay, let's do the school choice. And, you know, and little by little, I mean, my goal would be to eventually just get rid of it, because I just don't think, looking at it, I mean, unless it was set up, I'm going to stick with what I said in the beginning. I think we should go back to how we used to educate our children. Now, can we modernize that? Can we use, you know, yes, we absolutely can. I would be cool with that. But I also know that 50 million families, or even close to that, are not ready to make such a shift that it would take. I mean, you're talking about mothers coming in from the workplace. You're talking about a lot of changes that, you know, I don't think people are ready to make.
Yeah, a lot of them don't have husbands, man. A lot of them don't have husbands at home to assist, and there are all sorts of, like you said, a lot went wrong before we got here. A lot went wrong. And one domino falls and leans into, and it hits another and another and another, and it's like, wow. So
yeah,
I understand. I just wanted you to further elaborate.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to say one thing. Quisha. So I don't think that school itself is bad. I was in education for about 12 years. I don't think that school is bad. I think what makes school bad is agendas and ideologies and philosophies. And when that stuff goes into the classroom, your child going to school to learn the basics, I don't see anything wrong with that. Learning how to read and write is normal. It's the other stuff. It's the indoctrination that's the problem. So I think that public school itself can be saved if we get rid of all of the extra stuff. So you get rid of all of what they would call in college the electives. You don't need the social studies. You don't need the history. You need the basics. And I think if you got to master the basics, even if it came to like STEM, where it was like, you know, the science, the tech, engineering and all that, even if it was that. But I think the problem with public school is that public school is influenced by media, politics, socialism, all the bad stuff. So I don't know. I think it's a lot to ask for a lot of parents, because most parents work in America. Most parents I just think that we can work. And to me, it's a benefit for a child to be able to go to a public school that we're actually paying into. You know, your property tax is paying for it. So we're paying into it. And to me, at this point, most folks agree to do it. They're not picking and rioting about paying these taxes for these schools. I just think that learning the basics in schools is fine. I think it's everything else that's the problem. I don't think, I've been in education, and for most of those students that I work with, school is literally the most positive thing they have. Outside of the school, they're going back to the hood. They're going to be indulging Black culture. They're going with their family. School is the only place where they can actually get some kind of structure, you know, some kind of understanding about something. And so I'm not saying that parents can't do it, Quisha. I'm just saying that to me, it'll be easier to just cut out stuff that's in public school and make it just for them to learn the basics. and maybe even go on, I don't know, you can go on field trips and stuff too, but go outside and play and all that stuff, play sports.
Yeah.
I just think it's just the indoctrination pieces of it that's causing all the problems. If I go walk into a school and I see all the children on the board with the rainbow sign on there, it's just like, oh, that kind of crazy. That's what's messing the school up. Not the fact that the child is in the school.
But here's the problem, though.
Can I just really quick, Chad? Before all these, public schooling started with an agenda. That's my problem. Like the whole concept of it started with an agenda. Because it was never meant to educate. So I don't think that you could, if you had. I feel like the moment you get the government into it, it creates a lot of problems where the political stuff comes in automatically. And then now you got the agendas, everybody wants a piece, and it creates a thing. And when within the first 10 years of public schooling beginning, education in America declined. So like there was never a point where public education was, when it came into play that it was on the rise and kids were doing good. It never did good. Its first 10 years of being implemented across the nation, it had already started to decline. So I'm just like, I don't.
Why do you think that is? Or do you think that's just because the children couldn't read or write and do math? Or why do you think that was?
I think it was because the setting, the style, what it was created to do wasn't there to teach you how to learn. So because it was never created to actually educate you, you didn't get educated. You stopped getting educated. And so I just think that its entire inception was built on something that was never beneficial for human beings. So I don't think it would have to be another type of system. It couldn't be, it couldn't mimic, sitting in this building, the one expert before you, everybody just be conformed. Everybody, there's no individuality, there's no uniqueness. That's not really how we're wired. So, everybody on the same grade in the same classes. Like, I think it was better when you kind of had the community together and you had a few teachers in a room and they were, okay, you can work with these students over here. And everybody wasn't all the 8-year-olds together, all the 10-year-olds together. Like, that is not how we function. And so I just think it would have to be a completely different system.
If I may. So, the problem with what you're saying, Blanche, because from the surface level, what you're saying sounds ideal, it sounds good, but I think that we should consider historical context when we're talking about this kind of thing, because when it comes to any policy, especially a lot of welfare policies, how those policies kind of came into existence, and in the way that they were advocated for in Congress were meant to, like, the whole concept was it will alleviate this, it will alleviate that, it will remove the burden in this respect and that respect, and I forget the way that Walter E. Williams put it, but when it comes to you have to look at the result and not the, how did he frame it? You have to look at the result and not the
intent.
The intent. There you go. Something like that. I don't know what the exact phraseology is, but the reality of it is what we see with respect to public education is inevitable. And so, yes, we can pass laws just like what DeSantis did there in Florida, the end woke legislation. We can pass these laws, but the reality of it is a lot of the issues that we see are inevitable because you are basically putting the charge of curriculum making and all these different things into an administrative kind of body or entity who is going to allow for these philosophies and everything else to creep in eventually. I'm sure that whenever it came to the spread of public education in the beginning, you didn't have a lot of parents who believe that this will lead to my children being indoctrinated against my interests as our interests as a family, against the country, so on and so forth. You had these people who thought, okay, well, my kids will be educated and hopefully they will get enough education to make enough money to get our family out of poverty or whatever the case may be, because that's exactly how it was sold to them there at the turn of the 20th century. And then too, when you read John Dewey's The Primary Education Fetish, which I think was published in 1898, a lot of the things that you're saying is what he was advocating for, where he was talking about giving, like, in this kind of industrialized or increasingly industrialized world, these kids need to break away from the past way of doing things and the way of looking at the world and the way of navigating the world. And they need to get a good, robust education that teaches them about the mechanics of how things work. They need to go on field trips. They need to learn the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. That was how it was established by John Dewey himself. And while I knew who Bella Dodd was prior to doing this Cutting Through the Culture show, I didn't know that she wrote the book The School of Darkness, which I didn't know that until Chuck put me on that. But whenever I read The School of Darkness about a year ago, Bella Dodd, who was a communist agent and who was responsible for infiltrating the Catholic Church with communist agents who were able to eventually work their way up to the Vatican. She herself was an educator. She was born in Italy. She lived in Italy for the first 6 years of her life, and then she came to the United States, and she went on to become a teacher. Now, even though she had some kind of like soft exposure to the Catholic Church and the Catholic religion, she really didn't believe it deeply in those early years of her life. It was just more of like a tradition, in the same way that somebody who lives in the Middle East might be exposed to the Islamic faith. And so Bella Dodd didn't have any kind of deep connection with the Catholic faith that was predominant there in Italy when she was growing up for the first 6 years of her life. But she would come to the United States, and she says in her book that she kind of gradually came to a place where she wanted so badly to be an American that she kind of began to put off the old Italian way of living, including the Catholic faith that existed, that everybody subscribed to there in Italy. So she would go to school. She was very good at school. And she began to look at the world through what was then considered a more scientific versus religious way of looking at the world. And then she would eventually become a communist and help to infiltrate the Catholic Church with communist agents. And she later recanted her association with communism, would become a serious Catholic. Again, I didn't know that this book existed until Chuck drew my attention to it. But Bella Dodd is someone who's, I think when you read her book and you read about how educators in the 1920s and 30s were basically pumping communism into the minds of their children or into their students, they were doing this not with some kind of like hidden agenda or anything like that. They were doing that because they themselves were exposed to communism in college, and they felt so excited about it that they wanted to teach the up and coming children this same kind of ideology. And so there doesn't necessarily have to be a hidden hand at play in order for these kind of philosophies and ideologies to creep into the schools. It just takes somebody themselves learning about it and then being all too excited to teach the up and coming generation about it. And so that is something that it's inevitable. It's unavoidable, because even though you can pass legislation in your state capital or in our nation's capital, or even though you can pass legislation, you don't know what's going on in the classrooms, right? And so this is something that's going to be inevitable. And so to Quisha's point, the fact is, you have these kind of dominoes that are set up, and they all one depend on the other. This is our infrastructure. all of our infrastructure here in 21st century United States is built around the fact that we do have this mass public school system. Our economy is set up to where both the mother and the father have to work, because if you don't, you won't have a means to pay bills, right? Everything kind of depends on the other. And so while we can sit here and talk about family values, and I stand by those family values, like I intentionally set up my family to where my wife doesn't have to work, to where my kids are being homeschooled. I did certain things and made certain sacrifices to make that happen. The fact is, for the vast majority of us, we do depend on legislation in order to get us to the point where we can do that kind of thing. Or at least we think in our minds that we have to have certain laws change and in the Department of Education and do this and do that. But the reality of it is, it's all about values, and you either have those values or you don't. But this notion that, and I'm ranting at this point, but this notion that that we need to just strip public education down to its bare bones, to me, that's not a solution, because that might be a temporary fix, but I think these philosophies will ultimately creep right back in, and then you're right back at square one. With all due respect, I'm not saying that to cause an argument or anything like that. It's just like you said what you said, and it made me think of what I'm saying now. So I do kind of wonder about, is that something that you see as well, like this kind of ultimate like creeping back into the schools, if we were to like pass legislation or something to get rid of these philosophies in the schools?
Well, I just think that, so the problem with education system is the people that are in it. And you mentioned people that have hidden agendas, but you also have people that don't even care. So for some folks, it's just a job. For some folks, it's to indoctrinate. For some folks, they actually care about it's all different intents on quote unquote why they're doing what they're doing in the school. I'm saying practically, the majority of the country is going to reject an abandoning of public schools. They're just going to reject it. And so I'm saying that they're going to reject it, and they're going to be like, no, even if it's on the state level, they're going to say no. So if people are going to reject it, then what is the other solution or alternative to the masses rejecting doing away with the public system, school system? I'm saying that it's not difficult for there to be a school of 2,000 children, and you have all these teachers in the classroom, and you have a principal, you got 3 vice principals, you have all these people in the school that are there to make sure you can't do this and you shouldn't be doing this. If you ever like worked in a school, you'll see there's so many things that they'll tell you that you can't. There's so many checks and balances. Those same checks and balances can be in place for Marxism, for communism, for LGBTQ. Like those things can be in place. There's many teachers that hate the principal because he's always in the classroom, sitting in, listening, see what's going on, talk like all this stuff. So again, I'm just looking from the standpoint of, and not in this perfect world, in a world where I know that most people don't value education, period. They just don't. So you're talking about the majority of the country that doesn't really value it. They're not ready for this drastic change to say, let's do this. I'm saying if your property tax dollars are going to this school and you don't like what they're doing, then guess what? The parents should go to the school and say no. Like I've seen parents got all the stroke. I've seen it. I've been there. The parents have all of the stroke in the school. So when they walk into the school, it could be one parent hollering and screaming about something. Guess what? They're going to change whatever needs to be changed for that one parent. So again, I just feel like the reason why this stuff is able to sneak back in and creep back in is because nobody's at the gate. Nobody's guarding the gate. Nobody's there because nobody really cares. People are getting a check. You're getting this money. Okay, the kids are behaving. That's good enough for me. I'm saying the same way you got to follow all these guidelines when it comes to a public school. All these checks, you got to make sure they're doing this, you got to teach it, all that. You can do the same thing with the other stuff. I'm not saying that a child should be locked in a room all day. I'm not saying when the bell rings, you got to file in a straight line and walk past. I'm not saying none of that stuff. I'm saying just for the basic education. That's all I'm talking about. Because most of these parents got to work. Most of these parents were educated in public schools. They don't have this other alternative way of even looking at this stuff. And so I'm not I'm for homeschool. I went to private school. I'm saying the majority of people, the majority are going to reject. They're going to reject it. So if they're going to reject it, what is the most feasible thing to do? What is the most feasible thing would be to actually, I guess, try to alter what the public school has been. Like you mentioned, Quisha, in the first 10 years, it had negative results. But like Chad said, who was teaching the children though? Who are the type of people that even get into education? What type of person even wants to be a teacher? More than likely, they're probably going to be liberal. They're probably going to have some kind of influence of socialism, like that too even goes into the field in the first place. So should we get John the mechanic to teach about cars? Should we get old Ray from the hood to do? Like, they don't have to be, in my opinion, quote unquote, educators. They can be normal people teaching these kids. You might have farmers in the community that do stuff, teaching these kids about stuff. I'm just saying that from a practical sense, we got millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of children in these public schools. Everybody's mind's already fixed on it. So I just don't know how you change this around by saying, you know what, we finna get rid of it. These people are gonna start you want to see a riot. They're gonna tear the country apart. When COVID happened and them kids had to do this distant learning and had to be, man, you saw what was going on. Them kids couldn't read in 2 days. Like, I'm like, it was horrible.
But
so,
I will.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, when I was going down to the school board meetings, and not just me, parents all over the country was going down to these school board meetings because we were seeing what was going on in the classrooms. We did not feel like we had the power. So, because they were literally our school board. The governor had to sue the school board to follow the parents' wishes, so this power that we thought we had, like I honestly did not expect to get that much pushback from my school board. I was one of these people that did not, I thought like you, I thought, okay, we just got to go down there. Clearly they just need to hear some parents, they're not going to really push back on this stuff. No, these people, that's why they are in a cult. They literally, they saw the inappropriate materials. They voted on it to be in the schools. Parents just didn't know this. They saw the critical race theory in the schools and they said, yes, that's what we want. When parents didn't want it, they didn't care that we didn't want it, because these experts, they already come in with this idea that they know more than parents anyway. They are coming in with the idea that you are the one that needs to be re-educated. They don't believe, they think you're stupid. They think that parents are stupid because they don't have the degree, darling. They really do. I've seen it in my own school board. Like, they don't respect parents, Blanche. Just not that we have to keep talking about the school.
But how did y'all go in the meeting though?
Huh?
See what I'm trying to tell you is when the parents I saw, they didn't care about what all that let's adjourn the meeting, none of that. Them parents walk in the building, where is the principal at? Bonnet, dragging kids, loud. They don't care about none of that. What I'm saying is, y'all trying to go to the school board like Quisha King, Chad Jackson, Teach them Chuck, Blanchard. No, that's not how they came to the building. No. They came in there with the whole hood. Where are they at? We want it done now. So I'm saying they was acting ignorant, and whatever they wanted to get done, next day you got a meeting. Well,
so we got to act like BLM then. That's
listen,
what you're saying.
And people used to say, why are we doing this for their parent? Like, people used to say it, why are we doing this for just such and such? Well, because they know when their parents say, I'm finna pull my child out to school, I'm finna get these, like when they start talking like that, because them kids are money. When they start talking about, I'm about to pull this and do this, I'm just saying, when I was in education, the reason I left was because the parents had, in my opinion, too much power. They don't know nothing. They get something 1 minute, they get up out of bed, they come up there looking crazy and they want something done. No, they had too much. But I guess That's here in Atlanta, though. I don't know about Jacksonville. I don't know. I'm talking about in Atlanta. The hood runs the schools. They do it. I don't know. I just think that folks gonna reject. They gonna reject that schoolhouse being gone. It's such a staple in the community. Especially if they done named the school Muhammad Ali, Ben Carson Middle School, MLK High. Especially they don't put a black name on it. You can forget it. I mean, you really can forget it.
I agree. It's going to be tough. Let's get into the first clip, though. Which one did I want to play? Okay, let's do this one.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, to the stage.
Like all nations represented at this great forum, America hopes for a future in which everyone can prosper and every child can grow up free from violence, poverty, and fear. As President of the United States, I will always put America first, just like the leaders of other countries should put their country first also. But America first does not mean America alone. When the United States grows, so does the world. Our common security requires everyone to contribute their fair share. My administration is proud to have led historic efforts at the United Nations Security Council and all around the world to unite all civilized nations in our campaign of maximum pressure to denuke the Korean Peninsula. We continue to call on partners to confront Iran's support for terrorists and block Iran's path to a nuclear weapon. We're also working with allies and partners to destroy jihadist terrorist organizations such as ISIS, and very successfully so.
So, Chad, is he leading us to more communism in that speech?
So you heard him at the beginning of that clip talk about, you know, we the United States also believe in a future where children don't have to grow up around violence and grow up in poverty.
Sounds like Martin Luther King.
Right. So he's echoing some of the goals of the 2030 agenda. But then of course he kind of tames the naysayers and the detractors by saying, look, I'm about America first. America first, though. So he's jumping back on the other side of the fence. Don't mean America alone. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of this, you know, talking out of both sides. And he's doing what politicians do, which to me is kind of peculiar, because Trump circa 2015, the talking points by many of the pundits is, you know, he's an outsider. He's not a politician. But you know, to me, like I'm asked all the time whether I believe Trump is a psyop or whether he's genuine. And the truth is, I don't know. I don't know what Trump is. I can only observe and listen. And as a student of history, as a student of Marxist ideology and propaganda, there's certain things that Trump has done and has said that causes me to kind of like side eye him. Mm-hmm. But based upon that clip alone, it's something that really takes, and perhaps that's the point of this conversation. It really takes a moment to really dissect, to make sense of what he's saying when he's talking about, you know, the leaders, the global leaders of civilization needing to collectivize in order to stop terrorism. Well, there's a lot of things that have been done in the way of collectivizing in the name of stopping terrorism. I mean, when you look at the formulation of the United Nations, what did Eleanor Roosevelt say? You know, we needed to stop the spread of Nazism. And it was, you know, the start of the UN was a result of nations coming together to stop the spread of fascism. When the reality of it, I mean, I don't want to relitigate that, but all I'm saying is don't always take things at face value. You know, always look at the deeper meaning behind things. That's not to say become a so-called conspiracy theorist, but don't be so led astray by the things that these politicians are saying, including Trump.
Oh, I will put my tinfoil hat on in a minute. Sometimes I do. I mean, I don't really go down the rabbit hole, but sometimes some people, I'm like, or like just certain things that are happening right now. Just the coincidence. I'm not really big on coincidences. Just the timing of these big conversations that are happening online. I'm always like, when things like this, when people are starting to say the same thing, at the same time, I don't know. It just makes me a little suspect. But yeah, I'll put my tinfoil hat on from time to time. I probably don't necessarily go all the way down the rabbit hole. But people had a problem with Trump just even like going to the World Economic Forum and even like saying nice things about,
Right, I just laughed under my breath. I said, right, like he's not even supposed to go, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good.
So Blanche, what do you think about him? What do you think about the speech? What do you think about him going, or the part of the speech that?
I mean, listen, he has to go. I mean, he's
right, gotta go.
It's a part of the job description. Like, you gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta go.
I don't think because he went, all of a sudden now he's a part of the big conspiracy with Klaus Schwab. I mean, everybody's there. It's like a lot of these people don't get caught up on just the optics of it, and it's just he's the leader of leader of a country going to a summit that's with all the countries and leaders. I mean, it's not so. But what he said when he said, we're about America first. But America first doesn't mean America alone. I mean, it's a hallmark statement. It's just, I don't know.
Right.
I think for the most part, Trump has been about as American first as we could, more than what we got in the past with Biden and Obama.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I'm grading him on what I've been used to, then I'm going to give him an A for putting America first. At the same time, is what he's doing going to lead to more communism and globalism? Again, that's on us to decide. It's not on Trump. I mean, if Trump has an idea or a belief system and we don't agree with it, then it's up to us to hold the leaders accountable. But I don't think the speech was bad. I just think that our culture is heavily influenced by this everybody get along, we all got to work together, let's help the less fortunate, that's our culture and society in America. So I mean, that's just how we talk. We always talk like that, whether we mean it or not. I don't know, it's how we talk. And I think when Trump is talking, I believe that he at that time that he wanted to put America first, because I think he actually realizes what America not being first looks like. Like we haven't even seen a time period where America isn't America, and God forbid people don't understand that America is at the gate, whether people want to agree with it or not. There's something on the other side of that gate, and America is the only thing holding it up, even if it's just the idea of freedom, even if it's just the idea of I have rights. Those type of things aren't just worldwide concepts and philosophies. They're not. So if America is not America, I don't think Americans realize what that actually looks like. Y'all don't know how it is to live somewhere where you got to live off of their currency, by their rules, with their people. You never experienced that. Going to a resort and driving through the hood and taking pictures ain't the same. It's not the same with them. So I just think that America being America, Trump has been, in my lifetime, the best thing we have of trying to keep that. Now, how it ends up in the end, I don't know. But to me, that's for us to decide, because we have the power as the people. It's a whole lot more of us than it is of Trump. So if Trump ain't doing what's right, then guess what? Isn't it somewhere where they say we can get somebody up out of office? Can't the people decide to get somebody out of there? I mean, I don't know. I think that he was trying to put America first in that in that speech as much as he could.
I think Trump is trying to put America first. So I think he truly does love America. I really do. I don't think that he's a psyop or a Trojan horse. I think Trump is old school. He loves America. He wants the America that he grew up in and that his grandkids could live out their life in. I think that's pretty, that's what I think. But I will say, Blanche, there are tons of people online right now who are saying America is the psyop, baby. Let me tell you, they got a whole nother thing, honey. They are saying that we the bad guys. They saying on the other side of that wall that you mentioned it's like it's America on the other side. You remember on Dave Chappelle when he's like, he's like, got to be. That's what the people on X are saying right now, and big names, I must say. We are the actual bad guys, but
let me check.
You talked about this a little bit the other yesterday. Care to expound?
You said what'd you say? I didn't catch that. My bad, Quisha.
I just said you talked about this a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
Care to expound of these people who think that America is not the good guy, that think that we the boogeyman on the other side of the door.
Yeah. It's the Viveks, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, and their ilk. I don't know if this is the place for it. I don't want to get too off subject, and it's a very hot button issue, so I won't go too far. But yeah, I did a video yesterday. I uploaded it to my YouTube channel. You all can go check it out if you like. It's called "The Birth of Islamo-Communism," talking about the root causes, the religious, ideological, and geopolitical causes of pan-Arabism and global jihad. That's what it is. And I call people out. I name names, and there's one person in particular who I don't necessarily care for. It's not personal. It's just, I'm just fed up with a lot of bad takes. And I put out a 3 hours and 11 minutes video on the subject. Feel free to go to my YouTube channel and check it out. I will say too that I apologize, because normally when I'm here on Cutting Through the Culture, I'll have the live chat up as we go through the show. I'm not looking at the live chat right now because some people may have seen it, and I've already been called names, and people calling me a Zionist and all this other stuff. I don't feel like being bothered with it right now. Maybe I'll come back next week, because I really just went with it yesterday, and I don't even know if I have the energy right now. So I'll leave it alone until I'm able to, rest up a little bit and recharge and come back with it another day. But I don't know, Quisha. I guess you got to be more specific, because I talked about a lot of stuff. But before hold that thought, can I just please briefly give my opinion on the Trump speech, just briefly? I second both Chad and Blanche's takes. They gave really good takes. My attitude on this whole America First, that's within the context that Donald Trump used it, and then he goes on to say he doesn't mean America alone. One of the things that Donald Trump talked about in his during his first term, and even now, I know during his first term, he renegotiated NAFTA, right? It's one of the first things he did. Because one of the things that Donald Trump talked about, he talked about these one-sided agreements, what he talked about. And he said that he's sick and tired of the United States pretty much being the world's crutch. Being the world's crutch when it comes to, you're talking about international welfare entitlements, if I can make up a term, right? You're talking about all sorts of military protections and aid and all this kind of stuff. And Donald Trump is saying, well, is it in the best interest of Americans for us to be doing these things, especially when we're not getting things back in return, and we're seeing our longtime rivals on the ascend, right? Like Russia and like China, right? You have a lot of these one-sided international trade agreements, going all the way back to the 1990s, right? When you had a lot of American policy makers and our intellectual betters had this belief that, of course, we could reform China if they, if we just sort of let them see, what capitalism and open markets and free markets can do for a country, then that could kind of coax them out of their communist ways. And we see that the people there are still not free, and that hadn't worked. And now, because of us, China is now beginning to threaten us militarily. They're threatening us economically, and we may have to very well deal with them soon one day. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like when I say deal with them. Not quite sure what that means. Of course, no one wants an all-out hot war. But the first thing, the first rule of war is to not tell your enemies what you aren't willing to do, because when you do that, you've already surrendered. So when Trump says things like that, he's saying like, hey, we can't do this alone. Meaning that, for example, on an economic level, right? If you want, if you want access to our markets, you want access to our consumer dollars, then here is what you must do for us, right? Again, go back to the tariff issue. You lower yours, I'll lower mine, right? Because you have more to lose, because we, of course, are the bigger market. And so when he understands that, given the current state of our forms of communication, our technological advancement, the world is interconnected and the world is interdependent. That's just the way it is. Until something catastrophic happens and we go back to the Stone Ages and we build this thing right back over again, and all of us here will be dead and gone. And that's what I think Donald Trump means, essentially. When he says that, some people, when they talk about cooperation, globalization, and all these things, they may mean something else. But of course, there's nothing wrong inherently with sovereign nations working together, but respecting one another's sovereignty, especially when it comes to the free nations of the world. And the fact of the matter is that of all the almost 200 countries in the world, only about a quarter of them, if that, are actually considered free societies or, free republics or free democracies. People fail to realize that the majority of the world lives under some form of governance where their rights are severely restricted, to the extent that they even have any. That's still the majority of the world to this day. And so I understand what Trump is saying. Again, it could be interpreted in a multitude of ways. He didn't stand up there and go into any policy particulars on the world stage. I don't even think it would be wise of him to do that. But I just simply think that, generally speaking, that's what he means. Like with, when he caused a big fuss in the United States, when he, told NATO, these NATO member countries that they have to, of course, start paying their fair share. And, it was so common sense. It was like, well, duh, why in the world did we create NATO, the NATO alliance, to protect against the Soviet Union, the Soviet bloc? Of course, the Soviet Union no longer exists, and NATO still exists. But why in the world, if we're still contributing to NATO to protect our European allies from Russia, why in the hell is Germany purchasing Russian gas? And we are a net exporter of oil and gas, or we were at the time before Biden came in and did whatever he did. Why in the world isn't Germany buying their oil and gas from us? It doesn't make any sense. That we're paying you, if we're providing you with military oversight and protection, then why are you purchasing your energy from the enemy? Those are the kinds of things that I think Trump means. I'm hoping that's what he means. When he says stuff like that, when he says stuff like, when I live in a world where there are no starving kids, and That's all that it sounds good. I mean, well, it sounds bad if you know what you're listening to, right? It's one of those things that economists and philosophers refer to as a classic open-ended fallacy is what they call it. It's an open-ended fallacy, meaning that there'll always be crime, there'll always be poor people. I mean, these things will always exist. So the question then becomes, how far are you willing to go in order to achieve the unachievable, right? You have to pull up on the reins at some point, because there has to be a cost too high for you to pay. And you're just going to have to deal with the fact that some people are going to be poor, and there's going to be violence. There's going to be, you have to be willing to accept those things in this life, in this world, in this reality. And so that's, to go back to Chad's point, that's the kind of rhetoric that I don't like. This is the kind of stuff that progressives of every stripe love to tug on the heartstrings and say these sorts of things. And, it just winds up being disastrous. Now, and lastly, coupling together and keep in mind that this idea of a global society, this idea of a kind of international form of whether it's some institution, multiple institutions, this isn't something that just simply came about in the early 20th century. You have philosophers as far back as the 1700s with Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant has a whole ton of philosophical work talking about what eventually would become an institution like the UN. He kind of foresaw that there would come a time when we would have to figure out a way to kind of have separate countries, all, like a kind of globalist governing type of structure. Bear in mind that Immanuel Kant died in the early 1800s, and he was philosophizing about this kind of thing back in the 1700s. So this is not something that is new. This is old, and I'm all for denuclearizing North Korea. I'm all for I don't know whether toppling Iran would help, and I don't know. You can't reform the regime, right? There is no reforming Iran. The mullahs are going to have to be overthrown. But the bad part about it is you don't know what kind of vacuum you're creating. You just don't know, and that's what's so unfortunate and so tragic about the fall of the Shah in 1979, because once something is gone, like I always like to remind people that things are easily destroyed, but good things are hard to build. And so I don't know what we do about Iran ultimately, but when Trump talks tough, and when he talks about getting tough with our enemies, whether it be terrorists or North Korea or Iran and China, whoever else it may be, I'm all for that. I don't have any problem with that. But anyway, sorry if that was long. But did you have a question, Quisha, particularly about something I said yesterday, or?
No, I just when he mentioned basically America being the good guys, it just made me think about what you were talking about, how people they want to basically criticize America, I think, unfairly, because America has protected its people. Like, you can easily criticize when you don't have bombs flying over your head. Like, it's real easy to do that. You don't have to, you can have these opinions and thoughts and without any consequences, not saying that that there should be consequences for your opinion, but it is just very easy to criticize something when you are looking at it through a narrow way.
Quisha, I think I said,
that's right now, excuse me.
Okay, I said a couple of shows ago that when it comes to, and I don't mean to bifurcate it and make it a left versus right thing, but for example, when I said a couple of shows ago that the left hates America for its ideals, and many on the so-called right hate America for refusing to, or for not living up to its ideals. For example, when I hear Tucker Carlson during an interview. I felt it, and mind you, no human being is beyond criticism. No human being is like, oh, you can't say anything about him that people may get upset with you for criticizing said person. There's nobody that is on that level, right? And so, but at the same time, as an example, when I hear Tucker Carlson in an interview saying the things that he said about Winston Churchill, and saying, that pretty much like, well, if Winston Churchill was such a great guy, was this and that, and people pretty much saying that he saved Europe essentially. Well, then I think Tucker posed the question to the person to whom he was speaking, saying that, well, why did he save Western civilization? Why couldn't Churchill do this? It's like Churchill didn't do enough. And you have to think about, and you have to consider who Winston Churchill was and the kind of life that he led. And I don't, because this people say, well, well, Dr. King gave up his life, for a cause. And so just because, someone had a cause that they, I guess, were willing to die for, not die like they didn't die, but you get what I'm saying, like a cause. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were right. But when you're saying that, well, why didn't Winston Churchill save Western civilization? And I'm saying to myself, dude, you're still here. You're still here, and you're talking, and like, I mean, you can talk about Western civilization from a philosophical point of view, but Winston Churchill helped mightily to save Western civilization, quite literally, because you ain't sitting up here zig heiling. So he helped save the United States quite literally. But it's like, well, Winston Churchill wasn't good enough, and then the same Tucker Carlson will go over to Russia, and he's so much mesmerized and fascinated by Russian society. He's just like, oh my God, can you believe they have, you can go into a grocery store in Russia and you can just, they have shopping carts that you could just put, and I'm just like, dude, he's over there acting like Russia is just this fantastic place. But yet still, the West.
It's kind of like when what was it? What's his name? The president of China, Xi Jinping. Yeah, when he came to California and Gavin Newsom cleaned up all the crap, the poop off the ground. It's like, oh yeah, they can make it look real good when you're going on a specialized tour, And I think they used to do that, like when people used to go to the Soviet Union, they would show you only or when people would see pictures, they would show you like kids playing, but it was all
that's where the whole term fellow travelers came from, because we had a lot of these intellectuals, and even before you had commercial flights going across the Atlantic, you had to take a ship, and so the Soviet Union would beckon the best and brightest intellectuals in the country. And they would board these ships and they would sail to the Soviet Union. And I don't know if it's so maybe you went across the Pacific, I don't know, but they had to sail. And they set up these what they call Potemkin villages, and they would give them this great show and talk about how wonderful Soviet society was. And then these American intellectuals would come back and they would write these puff pieces about how superior Soviet life was to American life. That's what they would do. And I'm always reminded of something. I wish I knew his exact quote. I may have to sift through the book again to try to find his exact quote. But the author of the classic work, The Naked Communist, W. Cleon Skousen, he warned the American people about one of the things that communists want to do is not just to infiltrate your institutions and, about the Long March, but communists are happy when people lose faith in their institutions, as long as they no longer believe. And the way he puts it is so eloquent and so profound. I wish I knew it verbatim, but that's the gist of what he said. And it reminds me of what you're talking about, Quisha. I'm not accusing Tucker Carlson of being a communist, or I'm not saying that. But when you start to look around and you say, you know what, man, what's this? You know, we suck. We didn't do this, we didn't do that. And that's not the way, at least in my humble opinion, that's not the way you should look at it, because what justifies us, what gives us our justification, is that the West is the best of the worst, right? We are not as evil as our opposition. And that's what gives us our justification. That is what makes us good, is that we are the least corrupt out of a lot of bad options, a lot of bad choices. And that's all that matters, right? It's not perfection. Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. But we have a lot of people, even on the so-called right, that are allowing perfection to be the enemy of the good, or at least an enemy of the better.
Well, you know where I stand. Blanche, can you read our super chats, please?
Wait, hold on. But
Oh, sorry.
before we go there, and I hate to draw this out further than what we already have. But you know, for me, like, we talked about this at great length. I obviously reject this kind of Howard Zinn kind of effect on the way in which people look at America. And Quisha, I share your sentiments in terms of, you know, people getting on X and basically making America out to be the boogeyman. But part of me also asks the question, are we not guilty of doing the same kind of thing? Because when we talk about, well, let me not say we, when I talk about America's involvement in furthering the cause of all of these social justice movements over the course of the 20th century, because it stood to gain from the back, or off the back of these social justice movements. The reality of it is, like, I mean, when it comes at least to our government, or certain, you know, elected or unelected officials in our government, they too are responsible for a lot of the calamity and the dysfunction and everything else that we see. And so this, to me, leads to a even bigger conversation, because what I don't hear you saying, Quisha and Chuck, and I agree with this, what I don't hear you advocating for, to be fair to you all, is this kind of romanticized view of the United States. It's not like you're saying that America has always only ever been perfect. But at the same time, I think what tends to happen with these kind of conversations is one is kind of forced to take one side or the other. America's good or America's bad. You know what I mean? When the reality of it is, it's more complicated and more nuanced than a lot of us give it credit for. And so my whole thing is like, it's easy to criticize those who are criticizing. But what then do you say to those who say, well, don't you all do the same thing? When you talk about America standing to benefit off the back of social justice movements and the things that the CIA has done and continues to do to this very day, the way that various administrations, be they Republican or Democrat, has screwed over the American people for the cause of a nefarious agenda, not only over the course of the 20th century, but the 19th century and even to this very day. I don't know, like, for me, it's like I'm at this place in my life where it's like sloganeering and, like, you know what I mean, just this kind of like the personal attacks that go on that kind of causes a kind of detraction from the truth or people's interest in the truth. I'm kind of over it at this point in my life, to be honest with you. The conversations to me are they're just not stimulating anymore. It's just nobody's interested in really getting to and through the nuance, because it's all this kind of personal, and I'm not accusing anybody up here of not seeing the, well, anyway, let me just stop there. Blanche, you can go ahead and read the supers. I don't even know where I was going with that, to be honest with you.
Well, can I say before you? Oh, go ahead.
Might made a comment I want to say something about.
Okay. Well, I would just say, you know, it's when you're having a conversation with, you know, on Twitter or whatever, it's that's probably not the place to try to be so nuanced, because you are, generally speaking, you're trying to have hopefully you're trying to have a legitimate, but you got to kind of keep it general because it's Twitter. And I think these are the places where we get to have these more nuanced conversations. Or like a Spaces or a more long form thing. But what I see from these people in particular, it's not just, they do have the opportunity to have these long form conversations. And I still don't hear the nuance. You know what I mean? Like, it's still a lot like, very much, this whole woke right thing is a real thing because it's very much like revisioning a revisionist history in some instances, not everything that they're saying, but in some instances, and I am not like a historical scholar or anything like that, but just some basic stuff, I'm just like, okay, no, I know that that's not true. And then I'll go and fact check myself, and try to make sure, because you don't know exactly what, sometimes you have been fed, like Martin Luther King, you hear this stuff over and over and over, you find out it's not true. So that's my problem. It's that these people they seem to be intentionally, and I don't know this, but it just seems that way, that they are functioning on the same framework as a leftist, and not just intellectual curiosity or just legitimately just asking questions, all this nonsense. Oh, I'm just asking questions, but I'm, everything you say is already saying what you actually believe, but you want us to believe that you're just asking the question. Like, I don't like that kind of stuff. Like, don't be playing in my face. I don't like, I just say that you think that this is what it is. I would prefer somebody just to keep it real. This is what I believe about this topic. Like all of this, we can't ask the question. No, you asking the questions, but just be prepared for me to say what I want to say too. And that doesn't mean that I'm not for your free speech because I'm saying, no, I don't believe that. And I think you should shut up, whatever. But it's just seeing this type of immature, it's like an immature, it's how we look at the left. It's an immature thought process. Like, it's not even, anyway, don't, go ahead, Blanche.
I understand. The lack of evidence is evidence. You make an assertion, and the fact that no one's willing to, quote unquote, admit it because they think that what you're saying is wrong, in their mind, that proves them right because they already assume you have something to hide. And so everything is becoming like bad faith. It's becoming like a sickness now with too many.
Yeah.
And to me, this is the entire populist mindset. And you have people who, regardless of their political orientation, a lot of people are fed up with the system and fed up with this and fed up with that. And I totally get it, and I understand, I empathize with that. But what frightens me is that there are, again, too many people who are just negativists and nihilistic in the way they think. Again, no matter what their political orientation is, because there is a lot of nihilism on the right as well. And I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what many of these people believe in. I surely as heck don't have faith in them long term to build anything close to what we have built thus far. So, that's my whole thing. Again, good things are hard to build. And when you hear all this talk about the elites and, it's a word people throw around, and, again, that's populism, right? I mean, communism is a form of populism. I mean, you can argue. A lot of people say, well, a lot of these communist revolutions, they were just the loudest and the most organized, but they were never really the most popular. That's a fair assessment, especially depending upon which country that you're talking about. But overall, this whole, we're going to get them, whether it be the rich, whether it be the political elite, or this institution has to go and that institution has to go, and this and this and that. And all of a sudden, because I being, again, not trying to self-aggrandize, but because I am a student of history, I know what took place during the French Revolution. I know what takes place in revolutions. And they start out with a good idea to clean things up and to make things better. because we could be better, but they end bloody, they end badly, and a lot of people die, and oftentimes societies never recover. So it's just a warning. Be conscientious and think your way through this. A lot of people aren't thinking anymore. They're just like Chad said. I think it's just, yeah. Anyway, let's move on, I guess.
First, super sticker. Thank you, C Arc, for the contribution. Thank you so much. Second is CC777. Thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate it. Vicky Renfro, y'all some straight up haters. His policy is good. That's all we got right now. Thank you, Vicky. We appreciate it. Again, CC777, thank you. Martin Towns, thank you for the super sticker. CC777 again, thank you so much. Like you throwing at the strip club, you throwing ones at us.
Right. Band to make a day. Throwing ones.
Willie Doc, one time you mentioned that you think Trump could be controlled opposition. Can you expound on that? And when are y'all coming to Atlanta?
That's all for you, Dad.
One time you mentioned that Trump could be controlled opposition. I mean, the point that I was making when it comes to the question of whether Trump is a psyop or whether he's controlled opposition is that one doesn't have to be consciously controlled opposition in order to be controlled opposition. And that goes to the way, like the kind of convolution, that's a word, of politics and in political long gaming and this kind of house of cards that's at play. I mean, you're talking about a struggle for power and the struggle for power, I guess is for lack of a better word. And there's all kinds of political maneuvering that goes on. Now, that's not to say that you should like stay awake at night trying to figure out, who is in control of the cabal and all this other nonsense. You got better things to do, or at least I hope you do. But my point is that I wouldn't be surprised if Trump was a psyop or controlled opposition. I do think it's a mistake to be so enamored of a politician, of any political stripe, that you become something of a fan of a politician. Because the reality of it is politics is man's way of building a kind of, I mean, on the extremist side of heaven on earth, but I guess on the not so extremist side, having some degree of structure and stability in your community and in your land or in your country. And so in a republic like ours, or like any republic for that matter, where the people have a quote unquote say in the trajectory of their country, this kind of battle and infighting and warfare, it's inevitable. Like it is going to happen because you have some people who want it more than others. And so as soon as you get politicians who are kind of at the forefront of these battles that are raging, to me, it's not so much a fair fight in many of these battles. You have a lot of maneuvering and string pulling and things of this nature. And because I like Chuck, am a student of history and know that this kind of Machiavellian thing goes on, someone like me won't be surprised if it's found out that somebody like a Trump is a psyop or controlled opposition. Am I making a claim that he is that? I'm not. I'm just simply saying I won't be surprised, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Shelley Day. Trump is trying to do the right thing, but he has a strong influence behind him, like the Heritage Foundation, who was behind Project 2025 with Vance. Thank you, Shelley Day.
Thanks, Shelley.
Jesus loves you.
But here's the thing, though, and I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to, because nobody else is asking the question. It's like when people say, "I think Trump is," sorry.
Go ahead. No, I said, go ahead, bro. Do you? I don't want to be the bad guy tonight, man. I've made enough people mad already.
But hopefully, yeah. Anyway, when people say things like, oh, Trump means well, like Trump is doing the best he can and all these things, it's like, what other than our own speculation gives us the, like, is fueling our saying that, if that makes sense? Does that question make sense to you all?
Oh,
No, I
what?
understand.
That
I
Trump is trying to
understand.
do the right thing?
Yeah, like Trump is doing the best he can. Trump is trying to do the right thing. It's like,
Based on what, right?
can we say that definitively? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, I know we're just filling up space and saying these kind of like, making each other feel good kind of like slogans, but how do you know? It's like, I'm not saying that he's not. I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying, how do you know? Like, what gives you the impression? Anyway, it's like,
I mean, so I would say,
like, hold
like,
on, real
oh, go
quick.
ahead.
So not only like being a student of history and understanding manipulation and Machiavellian style politics, but also understanding too Hollywood and filmmaking and editing and all the
Right.
things. Is like this world that we live in, it's a stage in many ways, in many respects. And there's a lot of, I mean, we spend a lot of time on the show talking about Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement, and how like that's tough for people to break even today. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, do we really believe that we are not capable of being bamboozled and duped? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not saying like, but then too, like I hear what Chuck is saying in terms of like, there's this kind of nihilistic approach to politics and to the world that people have. And am I that guy? I sure hope not. I don't want to be that guy. I learned a term from Gothics whenever I was doing a live, and I think Chuck was actually in that live stream. He may not have been, but I learned a new term, and the term is white pilled, right? Black pilled is when somebody does kind of go into this nihilistic stage. Yeah, black pilled is when
white.
Of course you do,
Hey, hold up. Hey, Blanchard, what you used to say about your channel? You was like, this is a white, what you call it? A something
This is a pro
white channel. He's making the trolls so mad. But anyway.
I like to believe that I am white pilled, to use a pill terminology. A black pilled person is somebody who is nihilistic. Oh, let it all burn down. I don't care. It doesn't matter anyway. The cabal is going to do what the cabal is going to do. People are dumb and people are stupid, and both right, Republican, left, Democrats, like all of them are wrong, and da 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 da. And it's kind of like this esoteric thing, this approach that people take of they know everything. Nobody is on my level. Let it all burn down for all I care. That's not the approach that I'm taking. My approach is that so long as you have man in charge of anything, whatever that case thing may be, it's not going to end well. And we best not put our hope in man or in the things of man, but rather we must put our hope in Christ and just basically be faithful to Christ. And, we can hold things together for as long as we can until he returns. But we mustn't lose faith. We must continually strive. And although we know how it's going to end, these kind of man-made institutions, we mustn't lose faith, and we must still remain faithful and do the best we can. So that's the approach that I try to take. But when it comes to, Trump is doing the best he can, these kind of false things that we tell ourselves, we just don't know. We don't know. You know what I mean? And so that, I don't know. That's basically all I'm saying.
Well, I think just when someone says that, I think typically what they're trying to say is from what we can see, and what we think needs to be done. So we knew like the Doge thing, like I think that is a great thing. I don't think that many people would have the guts to do something like that. I mean, he's having to go up against, the Supreme Court and all this stuff. I mean, that's I think, doing the right thing. I think that's a thing that we could say that for. Again, like the executive orders. I'm like, okay, they need some legislation behind these things because the next president is just going to come in and undo what Trump did and then do their we don't want to become an executive order type country. Like that's not good. You know what I mean? So, but my thing is, I think he's doing the best thing hopefully, because the executive orders will then lead to legislation, which have, that's what I'm hoping. So, this is what the people, he said that this was what he wanted to do. And we knew what he's wanted to do. He talked about it endlessly, and we still voted for him. So, and we see him doing it. So I think that's what people mean when she's like trying to do the right thing. That's what I get.
Yeah.
Okay. Will, he is Blanchard, off topic, but isn't white folks trying to appease Bliggity similar to a man trying to appease a woman who has no respect for him? If I buy her some jewelry, she'll be happy with me. To answer your question, yes, it's the same thing. Yeah, being a trick, yeah. But thank you, Will. Thank you. I appreciate it. Stephen Carter, great show. You can't say the U.S. is the best of the worst when we are the ones exporting the LGBT lifestyle to undermine other countries. We have issues we've got to face. We aren't who we used to be.
We are definitely not who we used to be.
Well, can I say this? So the fact that America is even giving this aid and money to these countries is already a liberal point of view anyway. So you're asking them to sift through the liberal ideologies and just give the money and the fact that you want to, the country is begging for money. You think you're just gonna get the money and not get nothing else with it? You think you're just gonna get the money and no, that's not how that works. They're gonna give you the whole package because the money is tied to the LGBTQ, to the help humanity, to the AIDS relief, to all that's in one package. So they ain't just sending money, they sending you the whole thing. So y'all can say no though. Those countries can say no. They can say no to the money, but it's hard when you're begging for money though.
It's just one of the again, like Chad just said, about the best we can hope to do is to just try our best not to let the train go off the rails until Christ's return. You're dealing with a country it's based upon a lot of these Enlightenment ideas like reason and autonomy and universality and all sorts of things. And unfortunately, sometimes these kinds of practices creep in, right? It just goes without saying, but without going into too much detail, we still live in a country where even though you may not like the LGBTQ agenda, you're still free to oppose. You're still free to speak out against it. You're still free to say what you will not go along with. You still have that. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, because say, for example, in communist Cuba, right, we all know what a man like Che Guevara did to homosexual men in Cuba, or those who were openly gay or those who were suspected of being gay. They were executed. And so this is, again, man, it's you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? You want to outlaw certain things, right? It leads to repression and suppression and these kinds of things. You allow people to get through too much, and then these kinds of things. And so, you're talking about very, very complicated questions of human nature, human morality. You're talking about the transcendent truths of revelation versus reason, particular practices versus universality. You're talking about what one is commanded to do or what one is bound to do on the basis of duty versus this whole notion of individual autonomy and individual sovereignty. There are a lot of polarities that we are kind of vacillating to and fro between. And the fact of the matter is that no matter how long mankind, no matter how long we've been on this planet, we still haven't figured out a perfect solution. And as I continuously try to remind people, we never will. And the fact of the matter is that when you can philosophize and theorize and try to grandstand all you want to, because again, the United States isn't living up to your ideals, your expectations, But so many people who say these kinds of things say that type of stuff right here, right here. And while one of the biggest hot button political issues right now is the fact that we can't keep illegal aliens from wanting to come into our country, ain't that about nothing? So everybody wants to come, but no one wants to leave. Miss me with that, man.
And those countries can still say
Good
no.
point.
They don't have to take the LGBT. They can say no. They don't have to do it.
Right.
It's a good point.
Oh, go ahead, Quisha.
Oh no, I was just going to ask if that was it.
The scrapping beauty. You are what you give, get, work, and plan to be.
Ain't that the truth?
Amen. Cruise missile. Both sides are headed to the same destination. One side is taking the scenic route, making it look good, while the other was all gas, no brakes.
I like that.
I mean, it's true.
Thank you, Cruise missile. Wax gifted 5 Channel Jackson memberships, and Donald Hightower gifted 1 Channel Jackson membership. But again, I don't think that, we talk about choice enough and free will. Nobody is forcing these people to, like Chuck just said, nobody's forcing these people to come or leave. Like, you have free will. So everybody that's complaining about anything can just get up and go, or they can get up and leave. So at the end of the day, we're trying to measure America to something that we've never seen before. We've never seen a perfect nation. We've never seen.
Never will.
Never seen.
So what standard are we holding America to? We're holding America to a standard that never existed. It's not even reasonable. It's not even fair. Like, we're expecting America to be this perfect place. I'm like, how? And again, y'all ain't got to believe me. Go live somewhere else. That's all you got to do, and you're gonna see. Everybody know that went to Africa. I'm pancake African. I'm going to my roots. I'm going home. I love my African nation. They went over there, and it was on Facebook, Instagram every day. I can't stand it. I don't hate people crazy. And guess what? They all came back.
Right.
Then they went down to Mexico. Well, I'm gonna go to Mexico and I'm gonna live in Tulum and I'm gonna do this. And guess what? They always come back. Because again, ain't nothing like America. Nothing. So y'all can say what y'all want to say, but this is about the best we got right here.
I was harassed by the police in Tulum the last time I went.
Because you black.
Because you're black.
Right.
It didn't happen to you in America. It happened to you in Mexico.
No, well, it had nothing to do with me being black.
They exported the racism.
The racism, right? No, it had nothing to do with me being black. It was the fact that I was on a rental car, and apparently, and the part of Tulum that I was in, if you're in a rental car, they're going to try to get a bribe out of you. So, that never happened to me in the United States. So,
don't worry. It's too much like right, Chad and Blanchard. It's just too much wisdom. Some people they don't understand. It's too much like right. Too much wisdom for them, Blanche. Why waste your breath? People just like to complain. It makes them feel righteous. It gives them a sense of, it fulfills some psychic need that they have. It's just the weirdest thing, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth to that. So, how do I want to say this?
True.
Do you want me to answer that question now, or says Chad and Chuck? You've cited some. What does that say? I can't read with the yellow background.
Cited some historical books tonight. You have a reading list.
So Chuck cited The Naked Communist tonight. I'm not. Did you cite any other books tonight?
I think that was it. I think that was it. The Naked Communist was the only book I cited that I can remember. And I had to take a bathroom break, and I came back, and you were in the middle of talking about Bella Dodd. I don't know if you were mentioning School of Darkness.
School of Darkness was cited tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another good book to read is Masters of Deceit by J. Edgar Hoover. I know some people might scratch their heads at that one, but I highly recommend reading that one. And I'm going to release a reading list after the documentary is released, so that way people will have access to that. So So that's forthcoming. Thank you for the question. Go ahead, Quisha.
All right, thank you, DP.
Thank you guys. I was just gonna say there are a lot of people that love to complain, and I'm trying to see how I want to phrase this. I know some people, I'll just say it like that. I know some people, and they have problems in their marriage, and they just want to complain about it. Like they don't actually want to do, like, it's to the point where it's like, okay, what are you going to do? And they don't want to do anything about it. They just want to complain about it. And when you see it when you see it in person with like real problems, and nobody's like they're not really trying to do anything different. They literally just want to complain, because every time you make a suggestion, a great advice, like, okay, well, here's something you could do. They never take the advice, but they still want to complain.
Yeah.
I don't want to be upset all the time. Like that works my nerves. Like I can't, that's too much. But it's real people who live like that. They love to just sit around and complain. And it happens in politics too.
It's true. It's true. Quisha, so I've been off for the past month and I've been having people fill in for me. And I've been liking the fact that these shows have been at about 2.5 hours. I think that's a really good run time. What do you think? We just play maybe one more clip and then wrap it up, or what?
I think so, because my husband's going to be looking at me crazy soon if I don't. I mean, y'all are free to, continue, but I got to do what the man say. So, oh, I don't play with it.
Hey, Quisha, do you go publicly as Quisha King or Quisha Benton? I noticed on your show, on your YouTube channel.
You're not doing the.
What? Where?
You're not doing the.
Where?
Your married name.
Oh, talking about on here?
I'm talking about in your real life.
Your public, your public life, Quisha King, you still going by Quisha King publicly.
Benton,
when you write your book,
Quisha King Benton.
What's going to be? You did what?
On Instagram, I'm Quisha King Benton too.
Oh no!
Blanchard said, when you write your book, what you gonna say? Hyphenated ain't good enough.
What's your book gonna be?
Oh, it's not hyphenated. It's not hyphenated. King Benton.
Okay. It's not hyphenated. Okay, cool.
No,
your book gonna be called "Making Some Neck Bones."
It's gonna be called "Making Some Chitlins." No. That was a really good point, though, Chad, that you brought up about the book. It was quite a catch. And you know what else I thought about too? I was like, dang, even Kim Kardashian, she did have Kim Kardashian West. Even Kim Kardashian had her husband's last name. Golly.
Yeah, and there were people who were like trying to make fun of me, saying, "Oh, like your Elliot Page comparison fell flat. That doesn't hold up." It's like the point that I was making. Well, never mind.
Yeah,
forget about it.
We get it. I mean, it was a really great point considering the book. Like that was the point.
Right. Well, there was let's see here, somebody. So Anthony David, he actually sent me a DM. I probably shouldn't have said his name. Anyway, he sent me a DM and said, "Yeah, I wasn't rocking with what you were saying at first, but then I thought about it, and then this came across my timeline, and it was a video of that Indian girl from The Office. What's her name? The Indian girl.
I don't know her real name, but of course I know what you're talking about. She's like the only Indian
like that. Mindy or something.
She's like the only Indian actress in Hollywood. I can't think of her name. Good.
Right, but
Mindy Kaling.
So, yeah, there you go. So she was actually interviewing Meghan Markle, right? And she kept calling her Meghan Markle, and Meghan was like, "I wish you would stop calling me that. My name is Megan Sussex." She says, "I and my husband are one."
Ooh,
so I'm Megan Sussex.
No, she didn't.
Yeah. So
not Megan.
and
You know, all these racist people over there, even the.
So I thought to myself, wow, isn't that
Come on,
something?
Candy. Come
I
on,
mean,
Candy girl. You gotta
Megan
get
is
together,
super
girl.
woke. You know, you have this woke, you know, like
Wow.
of course the meme is that she emasculates her husband and all this other, but even she is willing to say on the public record, I'm Megan Sussex, I'm not Meghan Merkel.
No.
Meanwhile, anyway, let me stop.
I had a question on. Well, no, I guess we can move on. We can move on. I guess we're gonna get out of
No,
here.
go ahead, ask your question.
No, somebody in the comment section replied they weren't disagreeing with you. I guess they were just adding another layer to the conversation. I think this person, I don't know if you read the comment chat, because I did sift through the comment section on that post, because I'm like, man, this done going crazy. So I want to see what people are talking about. And a person, I think they were either, I don't know if they were currently living in Italy, or they're from Italy. Do you remember? And they were saying that the wife taking the husband's last name isn't biblical. It's more so just traditional. So it came from some honored tradition that long forgotten. And the wife taking the husband's last name isn't something that's done in Italy traditionally. And so Italian women don't necessarily do it, or at least they don't do it in Italy proper. But you know, your point was well taken. But they just think it's more of a tradition, more of a cultural tradition than a biblical thing. If we want to make it about that, if we want to make it biblical. So it was interesting to me, because I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know if the taking of the last name is in the Bible somewhere. Is it implied? Is it interpreted from some scripture or another? I wasn't sure. So that's my question. What do you think about that statement? Chad or Blanche, Quisha, anybody?
I have a response, but I know Blanche wanted to say something. Go ahead, Blanche.
And how is Italy doing? Listen, my question is, okay, y'all hear the last. So what's going on? What's going on in Italy? Let me know what's going on in Italy.
Yeah, Europe as a whole, Europe is collapsing in general. It's a shame too. It's a shame what's happening to Europe. It's sad. It's sad.
Maybe their new president Georgia will turn it around, but I know her hands are kind of tied on a lot of things there in Italy. But so as far as that comment's concerned, I think that is a formidable argument that I can grapple with more so than a lot of what I did see, which is it's her business, it's her brand, and da 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 da. And so it's like, okay, so we are okay with selling out your family, selling out your, you know, this kind of traditional family image that you are claimed to be advocating for in your book. We're okay with selling that out for the sake of selling your books and being, you know, maintaining your brand. Got it. So this whole thing of like transactionalizing and commodifying everything and putting the brand above everything else, that's what we're going for. Okay, say less.
I mean,
but again, I do get the like, oh, that's more of an American thing than I see that argument, but I raise you the fact that Candace is not Italian.
Period.
She's Catholic, but not Italian.
I saw. Okay, so she was on Stephen A. Smith's show, and it was okay. So she's promoting her book right now, so she's doing all these podcasts, which, you know, cool, whatever. But I caught some of the show, and she says she's talking about I think she's talking about Obama. She's talking about some wealthy person, and they have like an $11 million house, and she casually slides in. She's like, which is something I could never afford. And this is that. I'm just asking questions. I'm just gonna say this. Girl, your husband is worth $100 million, and you have made
about 200 million.
Probably at least 8 figures. I'm sure you've made 8 figures in this business. You like stop. Like, I don't like that kind of stuff. It's you. I feel like you playing with me. Like you. Why would you say that when you know doggone well you could? Like, I don't get that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was distracted by reading something. Did you say that? Like, are you referring to when she said that she can't afford to live in Martha's Vineyard? Is that?
It's she was on Stephen. She didn't say that specifically, but she said something that I can't afford.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it was Martha's Vineyard. She said, "Oh, the
Okay.
Obamas, they live in Martha's Vineyard. I can't afford to live there." It's like,
Yeah.
It's
really,
Like,
really.
stop.
listen,
Like, I
listen,
don't understand this.
Chad, can you do me a personal favor? I don't know if you have it in front of you, because I just want to make something clear to people, because we may have some people that's new in the live stream or somebody watching it on repeat. You know, this is not the hate Candace Owens show. This is not that. We hardly ever talk about her. I just want to make something clear now. If something comes up in the midst of our conversation, and certain individuals get mentioned, then that's just what it is. I just wanted to make that clear, because what I did appreciate the most from that, and again, I must say, it's not personal, of course, because I don't know the woman personally. I have vehement disagreements with a lot of things she has said publicly. But that's nor here nor there. It's not a personal thing, and this is not the Bash Candace Owens show. And what I did appreciate the most from the little dust up Chad caused on social media by suggesting that perhaps if she had chosen to go by her take up her husband's last name as opposed to going by her maiden name, then her book, make him a sandwich, it would have really sent a more powerful message. I really appreciate what Chad's response was to the person. I don't do you have that in front of you, Chad, when you talked about the cult of personality and how dangerous it is, and that to me was, and I agree with your point about going by her husband, taking up her husband's last name and using that name publicly. But what my favorite takeaway from that whole controversy was your comeback when it came to how cult of personalities are developed. If you don't mind, do you mind sharing that with us if you have it in front of you? I don't know if you can read it, or at least some of it.
Yeah. So I don't know if people could see that. Can you see it, Chuck?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
So basically, this person said, with all the strife going on in the country and the world, all the division and opinions that divide us, this is nitpicking about an issue that is none of anyone's business but hers and her husband's. To which I replied, saying, fascinating comment. I make an observation about a jarring contradiction, and you call it nitpicking. Never mind the fact that the author of said book, which is called, let's see here if I can't pull it up. Make him a sandwich. Why real women don't need fake feminism. So of course you can see the book cover there has Candace on the front of it, holding up a sign, and it has her name at the top, Candace Owens, her maiden name. So again, I recognize that as a jarring contradiction. Go back.
I just saw something on there.
Whoops. What happened there? I said never. Let me try that again so I can continue reading. Here we go. So I said, never mind the fact that the author of this book is using the book to take a stance against feminism, which has caused a cultural imbalance, thus contributing to much of the strife in the world that you say exists. Criticism of such contradictions helps make us all better. Without critique from the people you agree with, all you are contributing to is a cult of personality. That is how narcissists and tyrants are made. Candace is an effective communicator, so is Trump. I get that you consider them to be at the forefront of a political war, but what gets me is how many so-called conservatives are so fragile in their engagement in this war that they believe constructive criticism from within their ranks will somehow cause them to lose, quote unquote. You and I are not fighting the same battle, as I am not at all interested in your political war. I'm interested in something much higher, with all due respect.
Yeah, man. I like that, man. I like that.
Chad, can you scroll that picture up a little bit?
Yeah.
Go up. I'm sorry. Down. I'm sorry, down. This statement right here, why real women don't need fake feminism. To me,
is that a real feminism?
That's my point. Like, Think about what that says. That's saying women don't need fake feminism versus what? Versus feminism. So even though that's why I talked about make him a sandwich, to me is a defiance. It's not, because a sandwich is something that's easy to make and it's impersonal. It's not really, look, when you really love a man, you're gonna make, like Chuck's wife just made, spaghetti from Sicily with the garlic bread and all that. That's not making him a sandwich.
Hey, I made ribeye steak tonight, all right?
Okay. Quisha.
Oh, hold on, man.
Okay, ribeye steak. My point is, she says, why real women don't need fake feminism. I feel like this is a nod to real quote unquote real feminism, though. She's not saying feminism, no, period. She's saying just the fake version.
No, okay, so in all fairness, this is what I think she's saying. I think she's saying, when she says fake feminism, she means, because feminism is on the trying to be on the point of you care for women, you want the best for women, you want, women to have these, women to be the best versions of themselves, blah, 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 blah. But then you crap on all of the things that women love and are made to do. Take care of our families, have children. So it's fake in the sense of, you say you care about women, but you actually promote everything that is against women. I think that's the fake.
That doesn't read, though. That doesn't read.
Yeah,
and Quisha, like the
fakeness of feminism, that'd be different than her just saying fake feminism, because fake feminism means there's a real feminism.
It implies that there's a such thing as a real feminism. And Quisha, like you're an artist, so if something like if it has to be explained, it just doesn't read.
I'm surprised the publisher didn't catch that. I'm just saying, Chad, it's hard to cut you off. I just said I'm surprised the publisher didn't catch that.
Right.
Because it's like you say, it implies the opposite. And if it doesn't imply the opposite, which it does, of course, but if it doesn't, then you're simply being redundant, because you don't need to put that descriptive, an adjective if you call it fake, right? I mean, if feminism is bad, it doesn't need to be described. You don't need that qualifier. This feminism is bad, it's bad. Calling it fake, you're trying to put a kind of a punctuation, so to speak, on the point that feminism is bad. So you're putting that descriptor in front of it, which just makes you sound redundant. It wasn't necessary. I'm surprised the publisher didn't catch that. But I mean, we'll go ahead, Chad.
I think the publisher did catch it, and I think, I don't know, man. I just think that the sandwich thing, I don't know. Quisha, ribeye steaks, Chuck, spaghetti. I don't know, man. I just feel like the sandwich is not, I don't know. It's just such an impossible.
You know how it is, Blanche. You know
the sandwich looks kind of thrown together.
But you know the whole thing, but it's like a little pop culture. What do you call it? Like a little, when the man says, tells his wife to go make him a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? It's like in other words, ladies, serve your man. Be subservient and cater to your man and be a wife. That's what she's trying to say, because it's a play on the whole idea, the whole notion of making your husband a sandwich. Yeah.
And like someone pointed out in the chat, it was a play on Gloria Steinem's some cover or something that she did. So I don't know if Gloria's had a subtitle or title to whatever she was copying, but yeah. Deontay Blanford says, ask Quisha if she's willing to give up the right to own property, the right to vote, or legal equality. The right to vote, own property. I don't think that women, if I understand correctly, we did have
own property. We did own property.
We owned property. Legal equality. I don't really know equality. Like, what do you mean? I don't know what that means. Legal equality.
I mean, I guess there was certain. I understand what I get the gist of what he was saying, but when you start going into particular legal, when you start getting into the particulars, it gets a bit muddled, and there are a lot of details to go over, and so that's probably something that we don't have time to really go into. That's simple, right? They don't even look good. They don't even look
Okay,
appetizing.
it's not even it's the sandwich with the feet.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what
like you got open
now.
toe sandals on next to my food. Yeah, I remember, dude. There
The
was
white bread. White bread's not even good for you.
Come on,
Is
man.
that
Listen,
bologna?
y'all think I'm
Can I-
tripping.
Is that
Listen,
bologna?
listen. I looked at that cover and I said no. I said no. She got the white Wonder Bread, the bologna. I don't know. I'm just like, no.
So
Feet too close to my food.
no grain bread. Give them some fiber. No, you got some bologna up there. How many names does that bologna have? No, I'm just kidding.
First
I'm
name.
not trying to hate on Candace like that. Like, I think the
I'm not hating.
intent of the book
not hating.
is.
I'm sure it's a good book. I'm just saying. I
think I'm assuming the intent of the book is to come at feminism, which is a bad thing. Like, it has ruined a lot of stuff. So
Thank you.
I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see in the book what she actually says about feminism, and I'm curious to see if
I'm getting the book.
If she makes a distinction between, I'm curious to see how she talks about feminism in that book.
I mean, she's talked a lot about it on her. I see like her posts on Twitter and stuff. So she hasn't been quiet about what she thinks about it.
I ain't hating on her. We just here having a little fun. And there's enough going on with the whole Candace Owens thing that has me perturbed. Y'all know. So I don't pull punches when it comes to my criticisms of Candace Owens, and I'll leave it at that. But just having a little fun. The book is good, great. Sell it and do your thing. Whatever, more power to you. But there are more pressing matters when it comes to Candace Owens that I myself have taken up the cause of trying to counteract some of her lies. So
I'm gonna read the book. I'm gonna read it.
That's just that.
So y'all don't remember someone told her to go make her husband a sandwich on a podcast? Oh dang.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't like. Okay,
But I just wanted. But before we got to the feet in the sandwich. But D-Blade Ford, I understand his point. I just want to finish up. I understand his point. Like when it comes to property owner, I mean, there were certain differences in terms of men versus women and what women could own and what they could, but it wasn't like they were completely shut out on all fronts. It was a little bit more complicated than that. I just want to say that in general, but it's too much to unpack right now.
And actually, just a small note, we had a lot of protections.
Yeah,
some of these things that we thought that the feminists was trying to tell women were bad were actually to protect women. So this whole notion of like, we got to fight the vote. We got to fight for, whatever type of equality that we think. There were a lot of women back then who were most women were just fine with taking care of their homes. It was a propaganda. It was propaganda. It was a fake movement. It wasn't this organic movement that just, women were just so tired of taking care of their husbands and their children that they rose up. No, it wasn't that. It was built. It was manufactured. So, I mean, I think I would have been just fine. How things were. I love taking care of my family. I think most women do. It's something within us. Like
But the propaganda continues though, Quisha, because it's like
it does.
Just because your point stands, and I agree wholeheartedly. But the propaganda still continues. I was scrolling through Instagram yesterday, in fact, and there was a black woman sitting in the driver's seat of her vehicle, and she was drinking some brown liquor.
Yes,
and
yeah,
in
the car, and I don't know if this was just meant to be funny or if it was real. You can never tell on social media these days. But her son was in the back greeting. He said, "Mama, why are you drinking in the car?" And she says, "Because of you, mother effers." She says, I got 4 of you mother effers. whenever one of you have a problem and I solve that problem, then the next one have a problem. And then whenever I solve his problem, then the next one have a problem. I'm just tired. And she's just drinking in the car. And it's like, you know, the propaganda continues. It's meant to make motherhood look like, you know, a burden and all these different things. The same kind of stuff that the feminists were touting back in the 20th century.
Yeah, it is a burden when you don't have a husband because you out of order. Yeah, that's what happens. That's why God is not trying to hate on you. God is trying to protect women when he says, don't be out here having babies without no husband because you gonna be stressed, boo. It ain't gonna you're gonna die earlier, you're gonna have more diseases, you're gonna be stressed. You're going to be not happy. Okay, do not listen to these people who try to tell you, you know, you can do it all by yourself, girl. Okay, you go right ahead and be in an early grave. Anyway, it's 10:30.
Hold on, Keith, just for the record.
Yes.
Now listen, I don't think anybody's hating on Candace Owens. I'm just talking about the book cover and the, you know, the sandwich and the top. I mean, but again, it's a book. We're supposed to be able to talk about her book.
Yes, I
mean, I don't think anybody's hating on Candace Owens.
Speech, aren't we? We can just ask questions.
Right, I'm just,
Thank you.
I'm just asking. I'm just saying how much. When
like a true comedian.
Right. When is it? When does it become a genocide? When I'm just
Isn't that what Bill Burr does? What Quisha just did? Like earlier in the show, you talk about something that's a pet peeve, and then you kind of end the show doing the thing that you said was a pet peeve. That was very well done. Very clever, Quisha. Very clever. I'm just asking questions. I like that.
All right, you guys. I have to go, but I love you all. Thank you for watching. Y'all continue to have a great show. Good night.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's
about to be out too. Yeah, we out of here too.
Oh, okay. Well.
All right, y'all. Next week.
All right, love.
7:30 next week.
7